It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical, Mainz and Dutts. I am back to being your host, Mainz, and my colleague, a man who would never sneak a girl into his dorm. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
That is truly the story of the season. It does harken back to, in keeping with this time of year as well, an episode of Hard Knocks a few years ago, the last time the Rams were on Hard Knocks, where they said, about setting an example, how, Everton's a team, Everton for the team, everyone needs to be committed, and then they cut some no mark a couple of days later for, inviting a woman back to his hotel room. Yeah, there's not a chance in hell if that had been Jared Goff, you'd have cut him. And the same is true here. Yeah,
for those who are unaware, a rookie cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks has been cut as he snuck a girl into his room. He dressed her up, correct me if I'm wrong, or tried to, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, he dressed her up in Seattle Seahawk garb to sneak her through.
As many people have pointed out on Twitter, if he dressed her up as Marshawn Lynch on the 1 yard line, then the Seahawks would have ignored her.
Really? I think, yeah, just if she wanted to just say she was going to be a running back who was going to take throws away from Russell Wilson, he would have let her right in.
Yep.
Other such Seattle Seahawks jokes are available, probably in a couple of weeks when we do the NFC West.
Can't wait.
But we're not doing the NFC West. We're actually doing the AFC West this week. We're going to do some NFL news first, and then we're going to do the AFC West preview. It's just me and Neil this week. And Neil's gone down, lowbrow, back to me after working with Sky and BBC's Charles Dagnall.
Yeah, I've kicked back inside to the slot. I can't play X. So exactly. I'm happy being a secondary part of this offense.
If you say so. But let's start, Neil, and let's talk some NFL news. Neil, tight ends done got paid today. Numbers to be determined and probably changed at a later date. Everyone's favourite wrestler, George Kittle, 5 years, $75 million. Travis Kelce, a 4-year, $57 million contract. But it's actually a 6-year because the 4-year extension doesn't start for another 2 years. So that's 6 years of both of these. 6 years of Mahomes and Kelce in Kansas City. We'll probably come on to them later. From a team point of view, are these deals surprising, or are they expected? And if so, are they good value?
Well, you have to go back to about 2014, the last time a tight end contract reset the market. So speaking as someone who devotes an awful lot of his time and energy to writing about the tight end position and defending the tight end position from the various people who have nothing nice to say about it because the tight end one only got them 6 fantasy points and whatnot, you can say that if there was a deserving recipient of a market-setting deal, it would be George Kittle, because he is the ultimate all-round tight end in the sense that not only is he an excellent receiver, he also is a machine in the ground game. I think I saw one statistic that the San Francisco 49ers average 5 yards an attempt on the ground when Kittle is on the field, as opposed to 3.5 yards when he isn't. Do you remember the time when the Kansas City Chiefs had $177 in cap space, and since then they've signed Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce all to long-term extensions?
I never, ever want to hear about a team in financial or cap hell ever again, because there's nothing that these accountants can't do, because as you quite rightly point out, they've gone from having $177 to signing all of their people to mega deals in about half. All we've had is a pandemic, which in theory should reduce the amount of money the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have going forward.
I think when it comes to the 49ers, you have to look at what they've done, and we'll come to them obviously in a couple of weeks, as you say, but they are committed to getting back to the dance, and it looks as if they're concentrating their resources in all the right areas. I mean, they lost DeForest Buckner, so they drafted his replacement. They added speed at wide receiver in Brandon Ayuk, and obviously they still have Jimmy Garoppolo, and they've tethered him to George Kittle for the long term. So it's indication. I mean, as well, Kyle Shanahan, I think, and did John Lynch get an extension as well? Yes. It's an indication that the 49ers believe they are here for the long haul. And as with the Chiefs, I think it's just a question of, in a couple of years, I think I mentioned this a few weeks ago when we talked about Mahomes' extension, the Chiefs are going to be facing difficult decisions in a few years. I think what this does is it makes sure that Travis Kelce is not one of those decisions.
Yeah, they've decided the quarterback and tight end are staying. Wide receivers, be careful. You might not be here long. Let's move on to the next story, Neil, which isn't technically NFL related, but will have an impact. It was announced Tuesday that the Big Ten and Pac-12 will cancel fall football. They are trying and proposing to go in the spring, although details around that are limited at best because, let's be honest, they're making it up on the fly, as most of these sports organisations are. If only they would have seen this coming maybe 5 months ago. Anyway, I don't really want to talk about Big Ten and Pac-12. I want to talk about how other college football entities have dealt with this. The Big Ten and the Pac-12, for those who aren't aware, in location, Pac-12 is California, Oregon, Portland, Washington, that kind of area. Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio, more like Midwest, upper north kind of world. The other schools that we're going to talk about now are not from those locations. Big 12, mostly Texas, Oklahoma. As far as they're concerned, nothing to see here. Almost said in their note, not really sure where the Big 10 and Pac-12 are getting their data from, but ours seems that everything's okay.
Dickheads.
Next one, which is let's just talk about that, Neil. That for me, not that there isn't a big college football following in the likes of Michigan, Ohio, California, Washington, Oregon, big schools. No one's denying that, but they're not Texas and Oklahoma. And that area of the country, I assume, will try and play football at all costs.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best arguments I heard was if they can't play football in the fall, then the school loses all the, there's massive financial impetus, or input that it comes from the college program. Oh, so you're not going to have any money to pay the players anyway. So, cry me a goddamn river, pay the players, or suffer. I don't see why, I go to LSU on a science project, science scholarship, and I have to sit in a third-rate library. But someone who goes to play football gets to sit, gets to go and work out in a state-of-the-art facility, but can't actually afford to eat. Can't afford to, can't afford to live outside of it. Can't actually fit in the time to go to class and play sport at the same time. Pay the goddamn players, then you wouldn't have to worry about this. The fact that the good people of Texas and Oklahoma are intent on playing, well, I think we've just seen there are certain pockets of the world and certain pockets of the population who generally are too stupid to be trusted with anything. I'm not labelling an entire state like this, but I kind of am. And when it comes down to certain people of influence within those pockets of population, I honestly wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't trust them to return a library book for me. They will not make decisions in my best interest.
Let's move to next location where that would be similar. That's Alabama, where Nick Saban actually raised an interesting point, with probably a hidden meaning, which we probably don't want to get into, but a logical one also. You could probably fight both sides, where he believes the players are actually safer at school than they are at home. I think that suggests that he doesn't think much of the situations the players live in at home. I think we can say that. I think if it was just the Alabama players in the school, that he may have a valid point. However, if the whole of Alabama's collegiate alumni are there, I think that kind of falls by the wayside.
Nick Saban, great football coach, not a doctor.
And let's do my favourite one, Neil. Dabo Sweeney, Clemson.
Who is a 100% cock, by the way. It doesn't matter whatever you're about to say.
This is brilliant.
Could not lower my opinion of that man anyway.
This is brilliant. Don't forget, I've told you the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are not playing games. Dabo Sweeney believes the title would not be devalued if it continued on its normal schedule, which is the greatest amount of shade ever thrown on the Big Ten and the Pac-12 ever. He's gone, these schools are crap, we beat them anyway, so now they're not in, we don't have to beat them, so what's the point? It's fine, don't worry about it. As long as we get to play Alabama or LSU in the title game, everyone will be happy.
Dabo Sweeney, a man who once said he'd call it a day if they ever paid players. You make $8 million a year, mate, and you're a moron. So, again, great coach, not a doctor, not a nice person.
There's a theme. There's a theme on college coaches. Wonder if you can spot it. Final story, Neil. The NFL has started testing its players. They tested through Tuesday. The league has conducted a staggering 109,000 COVID tests. I think we can get into a debate on that, but we're not going to. The player positivity rate was 0.81, which is well below the threshold set for the summer. Like in a where are we right now? In a playing football sense, this can only be seen from the NFL as good news. Yeah. Teams aren't in bubbles, but they are in camp. And I would imagine that they're not probably seeing an awful lot of other people. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, as I'm going to assume that teams are not going to keep them in a bubble-type situation, once the season starts, that's when we're going to start hitting problems. When these people start mixing with the hoi polloi, as it were, that's when we may start getting a few more positive tests. The way that the rules have been changed as well now is that it used to be teams had until Saturday lunchtime to call up players from the practice squad. So it'd be a case of, under the old rules, if you had a player all of a sudden test positive on Sunday morning for COVID, you're screwed, you're stuck. Now you can call a player up from the practice squad up to 90 minutes before the start of the play. So pretty much when the inactives are called. Of course, these players are getting tested and tested and tested. So I would find it very odd, and I would question what the player was doing if someone was to test negative on a Friday and then test positive on a Sunday. I'd be surprised. But I think, as most people have pretty much come to the conclusion, the NFL season is going to start. That's not the question anymore. It's when it finishes. That's the question. Absolutely, Neil. Absolutely. I think that's right and spot on. On that note, Neil, let's leave the news and let's head straight over to our AFC West preview. Usual fare, Neil. 4 teams. We're going to look at a big question for each. You're going to give us their fantasy sleeper. We're going to talk about the games they play, the over-under that Vegas has given them, and whether we believe they will be discussed by Draftniks in Week 17 in the Super Bowl or not at all. First team is the Denver Broncos, and as everyone did, I said it in the same way that Homer does. Big question for the Denver Broncos. Have the Broncos managed to get enough weapons to surround Drew Lock to make him a viable quarterback?
No. They've put enough weapons around a quarterback they hope can be a viable quarterback, but they still don't have a damn clue if he is. They've basically given him enough rope to hang himself. In the guys would be, if he is middling to poor this year, they can say, well, look what we gave you. We gave you a running back. You've got 2 talented young receivers. You've got 2 great young tight ends. We brought you in a veteran running back. They are, of course, slightly hampered by the fact that their left tackle is still... if you're in a tree and no one else can hear you, Garrett Bowles is still holding you. It's according to Sharp Football Stats, the Sharp Football Preview, he has had 34 holding penalties since 2017, which is 15 more than any other player. He's a turnstile. He either lets you get through or he holds you. He's not a turnstile, is he? Because if he was a turnstile, the players would get past him. They don't get past him because he grabs hold of them loads and loads and loads. Yeah. He's one of those annoying turnstiles that you've put your fob or your ID card on, it still just won't open. It's got you there. We've said about other teams that you have to applaud the fact that they are saying, we have questions about our quarterback, but one of the questions will not be, did we give him enough help? They've surrounded Drew Lock with aid. A couple of things again from Sharp Football. This preview is pretty much brought to you by them. Yeah. His wins last year came against defences that ranked 21st, 26th, 28th and 31st against the pass. His loss came against a defence that was ranked 14. So the bottom line was, Locke played most of his games at home. He played most of his games against terrible pass defences. He played most of his games without any wind, rain, snow or brutally cold temperatures. We don't know what Drew Lock is. I tell you what. We'll only find out when bullets start flying. And it'll be too late. Well, the thing is, Neil, let's play a history lesson for those who are unaware. When was the last time the Denver Broncos were good? Peyton Manning. So they got a quarterback from a team who drafted another quarterback first while the other incumbent was still there. Hi, Aaron. I'm looking at you. In theory, this is not a no-lose situation, obviously, but they get a lot of talent on the team. I think that's undeniable. They allow their rookie, second-year quarterback to sink or swim. If he sinks, they haven't invested loads in him anyway, and it will give them a situation where they can, go and get Aaron Rodgers when the Packers want to play Jordan Love. It's the elephant in the room, and I'm already calling it now. I think we both have. I mentioned it to Roto Pat a few weeks back, remember? I mean, the Broncos are one of those odd teams that if you actually look, all of their success, and I mean all of it, has come when they've had quarterbacks at the helm that they didn't draft. Because they didn't draft Elway, lest people forget. They didn't draft Peyton Manning. I mean, their quarterbacks that they have drafted who've had the most passing yards for them are Jay Cutler and Brian Greasy. Amazeballs. I look forward to listening to Brian on Monday nights. Yeah, they can't identify their own quarterbacks, so they get other people to do it for them. I think they did identify John Elway. He hadn't played a game. I think we're getting into a little bit of the semantics on that one. But I know what you're saying. They didn't draft him. No, I agree they didn't draft him. But it's not like he'd played 17 years in the league and then they got him, was it? It's not quite the same as Peyton Manning, but I understand your logic. On that logic, who's the fancy sleeper? People seem to be sleeping somewhat on Melvin Gordon. Now, I know last year, after the incredibly well planned out holdout, he wasn't great. But currently he's going the running back 18. Now, in the last 3 seasons, he's averaged 18.8 PPR points per game. He's been a running back 1 in 55% of his games, and 44% of his games he's had at least 21 PPR points. Now, if we don't know about Drew Lock, and maybe Denver, maybe having some questions about him, what's the sensible thing to do? Lean on the ground game. So that's where they go Melvin Gordon. He's also not a terrible pass catcher, so if Drew Lock can try and find some degree of rhythm, working the short to intermediate areas of the field where Melvin Gordon will be, because Philip Lindsay has not been great as a receiver. Royce Freeman is not going to... Some speculation that Freeman's going to be traded or maybe even cut. So I think Melvin Gordon is one of those, if you are determined to go zero running back in your draft, and depending on where you're picking, I don't recommend it, where he's going, he would be an interesting candidate to maybe be the first running back you're taking. I just don't know whether he's going to finish in the top 5 running backs. I think, though, that maybe he's being slept on a little bit, if just nothing else but volume might propel him forward.
over under for the Denver Broncos is 7.5. Their first game is that bizarre second Monday night football game that they always seem to get stuck with. This time against the Titans.
It's always on when you wake up in the morning on that first
That's
Monday.
what I'm saying, right? It's 3:10 in the morning start. Like, it's wild, that. Like, it's wild for Americans. I don't really understand it, to be honest. You mentioned weather. They might be quite lucky with the schedule on that. They play Pittsburgh, but in September. They play the Jets in New York in October. They play the Patriots in October. They then play Vegas and Atlanta. They'll be fine there. They play the Chiefs in December. Could be cold. Play the Panthers. Neil, 7.5. More likely to be discussed by Draftniks in Week 17 in the Super Bowl, or not at all.
I think this is actually one of the first times this season we're talking about a team that I don't think anyone will be talking about. I don't think they're bad enough that they're going to finish 2-14, but I think at 7.5. I think that's a good area. I would take the under. I wouldn't be surprised. This is a team that has 6 wins to 8 wins. I think maybe in the range of outcomes if everything comes right for them. By the way, aren't 3 teams in this division? Isn't there over under 7.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wide open this division apparently, apart from one small fly in the ointment.
One small 11.5 fly in the ointment.
Yeah, I just think that this team, offensively, they have a lot of promise. Except the quarterback, they have a lot of questions. And the defense is getting old. And we don't know. I mean, we talk about COVID, we try not to. We don't know what type of impact it's going to have on someone who's already had it. And I am looking at you, Von Miller. So, they're going to have Von Miller back. We don't know how he's going to be affected. Bradley Chubb should be back. He was great as a rookie. Obviously, they missed him last year. They're an odd team. They are severely lacking in star power. So, I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to be talking about them.
I'm with you on the not at all. I see them. I think 6-10 to 8-8 is probably the right way of going about it. As I said, AFC East, NFC South are the teams that the AFC West plays. I just don't see it, and too many question marks on the quarterback, who I'm not sure is any good. I do like Jerry Jeudy, and I hope he's really good. But I don't know if we're going to find that out this year. I hope we do, because, that's cool, and I've got him in a couple of fancy teams. Neil, next team, the Super Bowl champions, Big Reds, Kansas City Chiefs. The big question for the Chiefs is, how will they react to being at the top of the mountain this year?
In 2019, when opposing teams led the Chiefs by 10 or more points at any point, Mahomes went 5-0.
Just repeat that for everyone.
So, if you went 10 points up on the Kansas City Chiefs last year, you lost the game. This team knows how to fight back from adversity. I mean, that includes the Texans in the playoff game, where they went 24 points down. They were 10 points down to the Titans, and they were 10 points down in the Super Bowl. So this isn't, we went 10 points down in week 2.
Yeah.
And then just decided, okay, boys, let's do this. This was on the biggest stage. They said, we're fine. There's no need to panic. We've got this. So this team knows about adversity. It knows, Big Red knows that they're going to get everyone's best shot. But they've got Patrick Mahomes. So I think it's ultimately, your best shot is not as good as our best shot because we've got 15.
That's if you want to, you can't bring that. You can't bring a knife to a gunfight, can you?
No.
And there's not many teams who are going to be able to keep up with them. So let's quickly go on to the roster situation. They have, not the schedule situation. They play at the Ravens. They may be able to keep up. They play at Tampa Bay, TBD, I guess. They play at the Saints. I think they could keep up. They do play other teams, but like they play the Falcons, but it's in Kansas City on the 27th of December. I don't know if you know. That's a dome team on the road in December in Kansas City.
Can be a bit peaky.
They play the Patriots. And not. I don't. They may win, but they ain't playing shootout for me. And the rest of the teams can't live with them. Just can't live with them. I look at the schedule and I'm like, this is a first place schedule for the best team in the league. Like, okay, they play the Ravens and the Patriots and the Saints, and that's the list.
Yeah.
Like, are they getting beat by any of the teams in this league, in this division? Nope. They play the Jets and they play the Dolphins. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm chalking up win. They play the Texans at home when someone puts a big flag up in their stadium. Yeah, this is cool, right? Like, how will the Chiefs react to being the top round? I don't really know, but I don't know if I'll need to know, because I think they're winning 11 games sleepwalking, and then they'll be in the playoffs, because no other team in this division is getting remotely close. No. If they deal with it really well, it's got 13-3 written all over it.
Especially now that, you know, with only one team getting the bye. You know, so that's a schedule that you have to almost think that. I mean, we know they're going to go to the playoffs. Are they going to get the bye? They've got to be the box seat for it. Because, as you say, there are no shutdown defenses in the league anymore. So how do you stop a team like this? You keep pace or you keep them off the field. There's not very many teams that can do that consistently.
Yeah. So,
I mean, you could have, you know, let's say 40 minutes of possession to their 20. They only need 20 minutes.
And the thing is, as well, is people can rightly shout at us now, Ravens. I think it's a very good point. But I'll be honest, the Steelers, Browns, and even possibly the Bengals are going to be more of a challenge to the Ravens than the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Broncos. So those cheap wins may help. You know, if they go 6 at let's say the Ravens beat them on Monday Night Football. It's in Baltimore. It's week 3. They'll be up for it. I wouldn't surprise me at all. Right now, I'd probably pick Baltimore. But I reckon when the Ravens play the Steelers in Pittsburgh, I'll pick Pittsburgh. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just see this as this is a team that should be playing in the AFC title game again. And if they're not, something badly's gone wrong, either with the team or a really serious injury that no one would wish on anyone. Exactly. Who's the fancy sleeper, Neil?
Fancy sleeper, and this may, you know, surprise some people who've jumped on the CEH bandwagon, but my surprise sleeper is DeAndre Washington, who's running back. He's currently going at running back 61. Now, he was with the Oakland Raiders last year, when they still were the Oakland Raiders, of course. Between weeks 14 and 17, he averaged 16.4 PPR points per game. He did have 20.2 opportunities per game, which opportunities, as we've said, is rushing attempts plus targets. Now, we know they have CEH. Damian Williams is opted out of the season, so people assume, oh, it's CEH's backfield. Well, while Andy Reid has been in Kansas City, the most he's ever given, the biggest workload he's ever given a running back is Kareem Hunt. In 2017, Hunt had 67% of the rushing and 12% of the targets. Since then, when Jamal Charles had 58% of the rushes and 19% targets in 2013, and in 2016, Spencer Ware had 52% of the rushes and 8% of the targets. That's lovely. That was an Alex Smith offense. They were both, all three of them, were Alex Smith offenses. This is as people have noticed, this is a Patrick Mahomes team. And Texas Tech boasted on their roster at the same time, Patrick Mahomes and DeAndre Washington. Now, I'm not saying Washington's going to beat out CEH, but I do think that Washington may see weeks where he's involved. Maybe, rookie, if it's a tie, obviously you go with the rookie. You invested the draft capital in him. But I don't think we should write off DeAndre Washington, because we have seen weeks over the time that Andy Reid has been in Kansas City that the other running back does get relevant occasionally.
It's running back in fancy wise is always difficult, and as a man who's lived through the whole Andy Reid coaching experience, I wish everybody all the luck in the world of all them people who picked CEH. Good on you. I understand the logic. I sat with the man who I see before me on Skype for a decade watching NFL games with Andy Reid as a head coach. If you wanna ride your fancy team on an Andy Reid running back, I wish you all the best. That's all I'll say on the matter. So all them people who were taking him 15th, 12th, 18th, cool, good on you. I wish you all the best. You've never watched Andy Reid ever call a game. Neil, I think it's a no-brainer. They're 11.5. Draft Knicks week 17 in the Super Bowl or not at all?
In the Super Bowl, and I don't like to resort to oversimplification or hero worship, but they've got Patrick Mahomes, and as long as they've got Patrick Mahomes, they're going to be a Super Bowl contender.
It's in the Super Bowl. As I said, the schedule is kind. It's just the way it works sometimes. I think 11's a minimum. I would expect them to be 13-3, to be honest. I expect 5-1 or 6-0 in this division without even thinking about it. Next team we're doing, Neil, because I did the order from last year and I didn't change it, is the Los Angeles Chargers, so it's not an alphabetical order now.
Well, yes, it is. Los Angeles, Las Vegas.
LOS.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Thanks for that. You just made yourself look like a moron. You played yourself.
I'll go.
Big question for the LA Chargers. I've said LA Chargers at least 3 times now, which is go me. It is in big capital letters on my screen, but, details. When does Justin Herbert start?
I don't think he does, as long as they are relevant. Because I think that Anthony Lynn has gone out of his way to let us know how much he loves Tyrod Taylor. And as we spoke to Mark Schofield before the draft, this kid isn't ready. And if you need to go to a team, to a city, and you still need to try and convince them that you are of them, I don't think you want to risk it on a kid who isn't ready. So I think you may say, okay, let's dial the offense back a bit. Let's try and run the ball, play good defense, which we know they can. Their defense is beastly. And just say, I don't want to say conservative. Let's be safe. And when let's safe. We know we're behind the 8 ball slightly in this division anyway because we're in it with Patrick Mahomes. But we can contend the 7 playoff spots. Remember, and I just think that maybe let the kid learn. And when the season is gone, or maybe you need a spark. But when it is gone, then you put him in. So because I like this team, I'm not sure when that'll be.
What hinders Justin Herbert starting in that logic is the schedule. So week 1 they're at the Bengals, probably favoured. Week 2 at home to Kansas City, so they'll lose that. Then they play at home to the Panthers, at the Bucks, at the Saints, against the Jets, at Miami, versus the Jaguars and then the Raiders before the bye week. It's week 10. They could easily win 4 or 5 of those games. I'm not sure they're turning to him at 4 and 5, at 5 and 4. Personally, I don't see that as a thing. It's always a tough one, I think. I watched him in college. He was good, but he wasn't great. And I understood why they drafted him, but they didn't bet the farm on him. And I think you don't want to break him. I always think the first year you have him is not break them, because if you break it, you can't come back from it most of the time.
See Gabbert Blaine for details.
Exactly right. So Tyrod is a serviceable, serviceable quarterback who won't pull up any trees. It allows you to run the ball and play good defense, I think, as you mentioned. I'd be surprised if we saw him before the bye week. If we see him before the bye week, there's a possibility Anthony Lynn isn't the head coach this time next year. I think would probably be the best way to describe that. Neil, who's the fancy sleeper on the Chargers?
Tyrod Taylor. What's the one thing we want from our quarterbacks in fantasy football? Rushing. Well, we know Tyrod can do that. If we look back to the last time he was a starter, so it's gone back a bit, but it's like the 2015 to 2017 season when he was in Buffalo. He averaged nearly 20 PPR points per game, which isn't terrible. It's, low-end QB1, high-end QB2, obviously. Mm-hmm. Very importantly, he averaged 6.4 rush attempts per game. He did complete 63% of his passes, and let's be honest, the weaponry wasn't that great in Buffalo. But the most important thing for that is, if it's going to be a low-volume, rushing-based offense, what do we want? We want big plays in the passing game. And in those 3 years, Tyrod averaged 4.4 deep ball attempts per game. So that means over 4 times per game, he's going deep. Mm-hmm. Now, they've got, Mike Williams, who I don't think Mike Williams is ever going to be we can funnel 150 targets a year to him. He's the get downfield and catch this. So I think that might mesh nicely with Tyrod. Might be probably a better fit with him than Keenan Allen is, because Keenan Allen sort of operates in that area of the field where if Tyrod thinks quickly, he might take off and run himself. But I think the fact that Tyrod is currently going as the quarterback 29, if you're in 2 quarterback leagues, or you just want in the era of COVID as we are, you're thinking I need more than 1 quarterback in this league. He's not a bad second option, I don't think.
Okay. Over under 7.5, as you've already mentioned. By DraftMix in week 17 in the Super Bowl, or not at all?
I think week 17, I have faith. I think they're a good team. One thing that is in their favour as well, and this is something that I think I've mentioned on quite a few teams, last year in 1-score games, they went 2-9. Because we know Chargers are going to charge you. They will find ways to lose those games.
Are you suggesting that the curse of Phil Rivers has moved to Indianapolis? It's not a Chargers thing; it's a Rivers thing.
I'm saying nothing, it. I just think that maybe if they're not allowing the quarterback to pass the ball 50 times a game, limit the amount of plays that Tyrod has to make. You limit the amount of mistakes he can possibly make. I think they're a playoff contender. And I think as long as they are in contention of the playoffs, we don't see Justin Herbert, which I think in the long term may be the best result for the Chargers.
In a weird world, Neil, if we go on schedule, before I answer your question, for the UK, if you love Red Zone and watching your own team, there is no better team in the NFL to support than the LA Chargers. Because you can watch those 6 o'clock games peace-free, knowing all you're watching is fun, building up to your team playing as they play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 games at 9 o'clock UK time. So not many people watch that 2 or 3 game Red Zone for the 9 o'clock. Sorry, Scott. Commercial-free football usually finishes for most about 9:30. Not personal. Yeah. In terms of where they are, I think they're probably the second best team in the division. I think they're a long way off the Chiefs, personally. The quarterback can get you so far. They have some good pieces. I like the defense. I don't see them though. I don't see them getting a. I don't see them being involved in a wild card hunt. Maybe more like the fourth team down in the hunt, if you know what I mean. The 7 and 8. The 6 and 7 with 3 games left. If you know what I mean, like still in the hunt. So I'm gonna go not at all. I think probably better than the Broncos, but still not anything I'm gonna write home about. Last team, Neil. A new team, quote unquote, the Las Vegas Raiders. As ever a team and a city needed each other so much.
Oh.
Big question for the Vegas Raiders. Is Mariota an insurance policy or a starter?
For me, Mariota is an insurance policy. Now, I will not allow this continued Derek Carr slander to stand. Derek Carr last year completed 70% of his passes. The league average was 62. He averaged 7.8 yards per attempt. The league average was 6.9. And the QB rating average was 85.1, and he was at 100. Now, it may surprise you that the Oakland Raiders had 53 20-yard pass plays and 18 30-yard pass plays. Well above the league average. So what's the problem? Well, here's the problem. In terms of the ratio, 48% of their yards through the air were air yards, 52 were yak. So it means Derek Carr's getting the ball out of his hand to people and saying, go on, make plays. Now, obviously, it worked to an extent. I'm say he averaged a lot of yards per attempt. I don't think Derek Carr... I think pretty much everyone has assumed, as you have done, that John Gruden just loves other quarterbacks. Whoever his quarterback is at the time, he loves someone else. But Derek Carr, I think, you look last year, from week 7 onwards, he averaged nearly 270 passing yards a game. His touchdown rate was abysmal. And he didn't take as many deep shots as many of us would like. He's very safe. I mean, God, they had a goal-to-go situation, and on 4th down, he threw the ball away. That's being safe to a fault. The big problem you've raised that question. That's very, a good one. But the main question for me is, can their defense get better? Because the defense was pretty bloody awful last year. I mean, they allowed the 8th most passing yards, the 6th most passing touchdowns, 3rd most completed air yards, 4th most yards after the catch. They were last in quarterback knockdowns. They were 25th in quarterback sacks. They were 29th in interceptions. One thing they did well, they stopped the run. They only allowed the 8th most rushing yards per game and allowed the 6th fewest yards per carry. Who cares? You can stop the run. Doesn't matter. We won't bother running on you. We can light you up on the back end. Now, obviously, the sacks are a long-running problem and have been ever since they had someone who could rush the passer.
Did they have someone who could run the passer, Neil?
Yeah, apparently, a Balliol Cat or something. I'm not sure. It's something like ilk. Now, last year, they spent a first-round pick on... What was his name? Cleveland Ferrell. And he gave them 4.5 sacks. Max Crosby, who I think was a 4th rounder, he gave them 10 sacks. There's not an awful lot else. I mean, they brought in Carl Nassib. He's had 12.5 sacks over the last 2 years with the Buccaneers. Not terrible. Arden Key has played 823 defensive snaps and has 3 sacks in his career. The only real... the defensive reinforcements they've brought in free agency, they bought Nick Kwiatkowski, Corey Littleton at the linebacker core, and they're taking a chance on Dion Jordan. The irony being is that they traded the pick with the Miami Dolphins, that the Dolphins then used to take Dion Jordan back in the day. And they also reached Damon Arnett at cornerback. He's not quick. He's got 4.56 40-yard dash time. He did have 22 passes defended for Ohio State in college. That was in 47 games. So 22 and 47. Not great, Bob. Especially as I don't think it's a situation of he was shutting down one half of the field. So I think this defense offensively is intriguing because, the boy Jacobs was very good last year. Injury affected. He did have 61% of the team rushes, only 6% of the receptions, but he wants 60 catches this year. Yeah, so do I. They did spend 3 of their first 4 draft picks on offense. They then bizarrely brought in Jason Witten and Nelson Aguilar. We've seen that they want to, it's a John Gruden team. They want to score points. And, it's a question of, do they think Marcus Mariota gives them a better chance of keeping up with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? I don't think anyone thinks that. So I think they will have to look at their offense and maybe hope we can force a few mistakes from Patrick Mahomes. They're not going to. But this offense, I think, is sneaky, intriguing.
See, that's what's known as the thing for the offense there. I'm going to say that I'm going to rank all 13 quarterbacks that John Gruden has had in his NFL career. These are, I assume, startings. He's had such legendaries as Jeff George, Bruce Gradkowski, Chris Sims, Tim Rattay, Jeff Garcia, Brian Greasy, Brad Johnson, Derek Carr. This dude loves the other quarterback. This guy has never seen a quarterback who wasn't playing at that time, who he doesn't think is better than the quarterback playing at that time. So thanks for all those cool stats and that about how good Derek Carr was at throwing 2 yards. Really cool that. But if you think that Derek Carr lasts beyond week 6 in this team without being dumped, I cannot help you, as you are doing the exact same thing as all of the fancy players who drafted Clive Edwards-Helaire in the Andy Reid offense. It's not if, it's when. It's inevitable. This is happening. Derek Carr won't start all the games.
So, let's assume, we're.
Do you want to know when it is, by the way? Sorry.
Yeah, go on.
At Panthers, playing the Saints' first home game in Vegas, hiding, by the way. At the Patriots, that's a loss. Versus Buffalo, probably a loss. At the Chiefs, definitely a loss. Oh, look, week 6 is a bye week. Where's he next? Sunday night football versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, starting Marcus Mariota.
So let's assume, I say, this is a fair amount of, supposition. Let's assume there is a full 16-game NFL season. Yeah. You don't think Derek Carr starts? You certainly don't think he starts all 16.
He won't start more than 10.
So the over/under is 10.
10.
Right. I'm going to take the over, and I want to know what the stakes of this bet are.
Okay. Whatever meal on Just Eat that you want will be delivered to your house.
Sounds expensive. Shall we look at... Yeah, he's actually shite.
No, it's about, I'm not saying you're buying a meal for 4. I'm saying you want burger and chips, or a curry, or a kebab, or a pizza.
Okay.
Because I'm not having it. What you've done there is, this, as I come back to it, is what you've done is looked at history and thrown it in the trash for no particular reason other than you felt like it. Serial killers kill people all the time. That's what they do. John Gruden starts loads of quarterbacks. That's what he does. It's not.
But he hasn't.
No, he's been in the league, back in the league for 1 year. Doesn't count.
2 years.
2 years, and it doesn't count. Tampa Bay started 450 quarterbacks every week. He started a new quarterback.
But in 2 years with Oakland, he didn't. And
he didn't. And in those 2 years, he didn't have a former number 2 pick in the NFL draft, who, by the way, he did lots of funny things with in relation to his undercarriage when he was coming up, and he had him in his Gruden camp. So please accept that Marcus Mariota is going to win this job eventually.
I'm
don't get me wrong.
certain.
In about 3 or 4 weeks, he will lose the job again.
Yeah,
and then in another 4 weeks after that, he will win it back.
I'm fairly certain what you've just said probably somewhere constitutes libel. So I think we should probably move on.
Allegedly really like Marcus Mariota in his camp. Who's the fancy sleeper, Neil? As we've been talking about the John Gruden quarterbacks for about 45 minutes.
Well, the sleeper for me is the rookie wide receiver Henry Ruggs. Now, people assume Henry Ruggs just blazing speed. Oh, he's just a situational deep threat. John Gruden, as you say, classic West Coast offense is put the ball in your playmaker's hand and let him rack up the yak. Well, Ruggs, they don't seem to think that Ruggs is a Deshaun Jackson type player. They think Ruggs is a Tyreek Hill type player, and that is someone, just give him the ball, let him make plays. Now, I think, obviously the sharp learning curve, yeah, great. They're going to move Ruggs around. They're going to get him the ball, maybe line him up in the backfield, give him a few carries. Hell, they don't let Josh Jacobs catch the ball. Why not take some carries off him as well? I wouldn't be at all surprised if Ruggs led the team in receiving yards, certainly. Maybe not touchdowns. I think there's a few other people that, he'll score some long touchdowns. And I think, considering running back 47, he's at that area that if you take him, he's got potential to be a weekly wide receiver 3, and he's going to have boom weeks. I think where he's going to get the 5, 120 and 2. So I think for what you're paying for him, he offers good value, especially when he's linking up time and time again across the middle with Derek Carr.
Neil, the Las Vegas Raiders, more likely to be discussed by Draftniks in Week 17 in the Super Bowl or not at all?
I've got a sneaking feeling that they could be the high end of not at all, low end of Week 17. I think they're going to be frisky. I think they could be involved. It's a murderous road to start with, as you say, but I think this team can score points. I just worry that the defense is shite. I think it could still be shite, and that could bite them on the arse.
If I was shit on defense, I don't want to play the Saints, the Patriots, the Chiefs twice. I don't want to play at Cleveland. I don't want to play at Atlanta. I don't want to play the Indianapolis Colts. So that's bad news for me. See, I think we've learned that our bet hinges on one thing. You think the Las Vegas Raiders are somewhat good. I think they are somewhat shit. And therefore are at best not at all and could possibly be Draftnik. So, their GM can talk about himself on NFL Network or whatever. I'm not convinced. I don't know if you can tell. So I'm going to say just about not at all. Probably 5 wins. Could probably be discussed by Draftniks when we again get to listen to John Gruden talk about quarterbacks. That'll be cool.
All I know is when I'm enjoying my Just Eat purchase, I'm going to be scouring certain websites and I will buy a Derek Carr jersey.
Fantastic. Neil, that's the end of the show. Before we go, where can people catch you this week?
The hell did I turn into a Derek Carr? Apologies when this happened. Find me on the Twitter at @ndutton13. I've written a few articles this week at Ravens Wire regarding the Ravens opponents. That series is wrapping up as we come to the end of the pre-season.
I'd just like to stop Neil
season.
quickly and say his synopsis of the Colts game is fantastic. Go and read it. Read it, understand and learn history. Then once you've done that, dig out ESPN 30 for 30 and watch The Band That Never Died.
Yeah, that was obviously most of them were just, they played this team back then. He's got 300 yards, but obviously there are a couple of games where you have to go a bit deeper into the rivalry, and obviously the Colts and Baltimore, that was a thing. Then obviously there's the Ravens and Cleveland, that was a thing. There was a few good matchups. I enjoyed writing actually the one that came out today on Thursday about the Tennessee Titans, because I'd totally forgotten that they were in the same division back in the old AFC Central. and they played each other twice. And obviously, one of the greatest Titans / Oilers players of all time, Steve McNair, obviously played for Baltimore as well. So that was fun. That's been a fun series. I've enjoyed that. I will be part of a few compilation articles. One of them is a bold prediction from RotoViz for the 2020 season, and another one is a very, 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 very bold prediction for the 2020 season, and that'll be for Roto Underworld. And obviously, the very, very, very is how friend Kelly ends all of his podcasts. So I'm thinking about them. I will have a few more articles out before we speak again. Hopefully, if I can find the time. But yeah, end up 13 for all the bad tweets.
Yeah, and Matt, for those who listen to Fancy, he does actually finish shows sometimes, as his latest effort is over 3 hours long. And by over, I was going to say, and by over, I mean 45 minutes over 3 hours. That's a lot of talking. Yeah, this one's coming to 1 hour, and my throat's about to die. I salute him as always. I am at Mainz7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. Next week, if you've been paying attention, it's the NFC West, and we get to, I guess, moan about Russell Wilson not throwing enough, and other such things as, is Jared Goff actually any good? Breaking news, he's not. On that note, these top guys are out.